saying it, because they're also unbelievable. And so why couldn't there be a clearinghouse for all the unbelievable kind of superhuman, super mutant kind of things that are going on? Why couldn't there be? It makes total sense that the same person would be in control of all of that, or that had be the responsible for it.
Absolutely, that's how I've rationalized it since your arc started. That's how I've been kind of rationalizing that.
And we were talking about it before the show started, that now that we know the Court of Owls from last night's show, the Court of Owls are now behind everything. Which we've talked. We know Scott Snyder, who created the Court of Owls, and we loved seeing that last night. But it's and kind of unraveling Hugo Strange's role in the murder of Martha and Thomas Wayne. We were talking that, in a sense, not only are you creating the villains Batman will face later on in his career, but you essentially created Batman as well. This is our theory, nothing's been told, but this is our theory, that you were kind of the mastermind behind the whole Batman mythology.
Well, you mean that Hugo Strange is the motivation for him to become Batman, or that he actually is a creator of Batman?
He is not I created him, but by his actions.
By his motivator.
Yes, the motivator.
I mean, he's the reason, in this case, as of last night, right? He's the reason why Batman let's not say Batman, why Bruce Wayne is doing the things that he's doing. Mm-hmm. And really, whether he's right or not about the specific culpability of Strange in the Wayne murders, we don't even really know what that specific role actually is. And I think I have a feeling, I really don't know, I have a feeling that is going to morph a little bit as far as how absolutely responsible he is. But I don't know. What I will say is that I think that's absolutely true. If you can look at it as he's the instigator, or the motivation, I think, for Bruce to do the things that he's doing. No question about that.
Yeah. And when I look at Hugo Strange, and like we said, he's a combination of Hugo throughout the years, the different incarnations of Hugo from the book. I was also seeing a little bit of Dr. Moreau from the Island of Dr. Moreau in there, the way he does his genetics and the adding of the animal DNA. And I was telling them today, that's really, because I'm a huge fan of the Island of Dr. Moreau and H.G. Wells, and I could see that in this interpretation of him, this incarnation of him.
And were you saying that there was a connection between those two things before, or that you just are making that bridge?
I'm making that bridge, but I'm making that bridge with the way this show has been written and your portrayal of him, the way the writers have written how you're bringing like Theo Gallivan and Fish Mooney back from the dead with cuttlefish DNA and octopus DNA. Yeah. It's very Dr. Moreau-ish to me.
Yeah. I see. And that's totally valid. I mean, whether or not, where that comes from, I'm not sure, but I do see that. Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to know if you think that Hugo Strange has regret about the death of Thomas Wayne, and like I don't know if they've told you if there's going to be more on that later, if you can't reveal that. But for you personally, playing the character, you feel that Hugo Strange feels regret that Thomas Wayne was killed.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they installed. When you're really, not to brag about being an actor, but I do think being an actor, what's the word? It entails certain things that are just so unique to itself. I mean, when you're an actor, you get to do things that other people don't get to do. And one of those things is to take what someone's telling you is a truth and to decide how much to emphasize it or not to emphasize it. For example, they wrote in those scenes from the last night's episode a certain amount of kind of wistfulness, or, I really like this kid, and the kid is really, it's not just a black or white thing where he just like the kid that Hugo Strange is the bad guy, and okay, so the kid is the good force, and then the bad force and the good force are just kind of clanging together. Hugo Strange is written into those scenes as having a certain amount of conflict. I found that interesting, and I found that highlightable. And I like to think that I stressed those things, and I like that decision was embraced by everyone else that was around. Because when you're shooting the scenes, the producers are there and the director is there, and they can say to you, look, you know what, you're going a little far with that idea. You should probably pull back on that idea and do, like, we like what you're doing, but there's all sorts of different versions of those things. And in this case, I felt that his regret for any regret that he felt and any affection that he felt for the kid was complex and interesting. And so that's why I always want to take this straight line and like turn it into, take this flat line and turn it into a waveform, because it makes the character so much more interesting. It just makes a person more interesting to have been the person that created this whole thing, to have been allegedly, at this point, the person responsible for this kid's murder, and for that person to not just be like traditionally unremorseful about it.
Right. I think it definitely came across, definitely in the scene with Hugo Strange and Bruce in the office. It seemed almost like you were giving him a chance you wouldn't give someone else. It seemed like the character was saying, "I'm begging you, kid, please let this go and walk away," and then you didn't want to have to take your next move.
I agree with that, and I appreciate your picking up on that. That's absolutely true. And why would I? Well, the thing is, he is a kid, and one of the things about that is, like, it's going to get super ugly. It's going to be a place where kids shouldn't be, and I am more than happy to give him an out. Or Hugo Strange is more than happy, I think. Or our Hugo Strange is more than happy to give the kid an out. And there's a certain amount of weird humanity to that, right? And that is like what I'm saying is it's kind of interesting to say, you're not just like going to be a person who you could check off all the boxes and predict how they're going to be in any given situation, predict how they'll be, or be so sure about how they're going to be. Human beings have really complex feelings and emotions about everything, and unremorseful killers are rather boring, actually. A person who has killed and then has this tremendous tug of war that goes on inside them, that starts to become interesting because they can't undo the thing that they did.
I definitely think I'm definitely picking up on that in your performance, and you're taking a character that, to me, Hugo Strange in the comic books was really an unsympathetic guy. He was just a really he was megalomaniacal. He was a mad scientist. He wanted wealth and power, and you're taking that and you're making him more of a sympathetic character by giving him some of those emotions. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and the only reason to do that really is that's really the only reason to do that is to bring the audience along with you. If the audience knows what it always is going to be every single time, and it becomes predictable, and it becomes like, okay, I know what this is going to be. I know, then you see a scene where Bruce and Hugo Strange are in this scene, and then you know how it's going to turn out, however it is, if Hugo always acts the same way. But when you start shaking it up and making it more complex, that's when the audience starts paying attention. And I think that in a show like this, with so many villains and so many different characters, you owe it to the audience to create a person who's interesting, that isn't just one note and that isn't just predictable. You'll shoot yourself in the foot, even though it's really fun to kind of play an evil person and just be evil, and for the sake of being evil. That is so fun to do, but not for me if it's only that, is all I'm saying.
And the character, I mean, just your look as Hugo Strange with the we call it the jawline beard. I mean, the tinted glasses. You to me, you jumped right off the comic book pages, and but what I want to know is, for the comic book, history, Hugo Strange has been played, has always been a Caucasian. How was the fan reaction to you taking on this role, and when fans finally saw you in this role, what was the reaction that they gave you?
Great. Fans, right? How was it the fans that reacted?
Yes, because like we said earlier, the fans are so jaded; they want it one way. Yeah. How was the reaction?
The reaction was 100% fantastic. Well, no, I mean, 100% fantastic, like 99 to 100% fantastic. Like when I troll through like thousands of comments on, and of course I do that when I shouldn't do it. Like you go through all of the comments on the Facebook page, and you're like, trying to look for signs that you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's actually constructive if you're got a strong stomach. But the thing is that they almost unanimously dug the way that the character was rendered. I can only take so much credit for that. The whole thing from the design point of view and from the writing point of view, and then my part of it as well, as a collaboration, seemed to satisfy people. And I was frankly kind of nervous about it because the show does make a really great effort at making a traditionally undiverse universe more diverse. And in my work and in my career, that's super important to me. I really want to do that kind of work, and so I was really on board with them doing that. And then we went through a whole process of trying to decide what he was going to look like, and they actually suggested in production that I veer away from the way the character actually traditionally looked, and let's just shake it up and do whatever we want with it. And I said, well, I'd like to do some tests to see how these various looks are going to look on me, because I don't look anything like the original Hugo Strange from the drawings and the comics from decades, time immemorial. So what would it be like if I took elements of that look and put it on me? Would it look awful and terrible and look like I'm impersonating a white person, or can I actually make him a character that fits on my body organically and everyone kind of accepts? And that was the goal. And in that regard, I thought it was really important to try to make him look like the old Hugo Strange, because then you're not saying that I have to completely throw everything in the garbage in order to play the part at all. And so there's a kind of an overlapping that is really graceful to me, and they bought it. The audience seemed to really, really appreciate it and really get it. And really, to me, the best endorsement is not noticing it or not even remarking on it, not talking about it as a racial issue at all, it just seemed to them like he was him. And that really was great for me. So there hasn't been a lot of that. Everyone's really into it. I think they're into the fact that for whatever reason, the vibe that he gave you in the comics and in the other manifestations seems like the same vibe. Mm-hmm. I'm not imitating anybody that I've seen before. I've never heard a voice or tried to come up, there's never been an actor who's played the part before, I don't think.
No, you're the first. You're the first live action Hugo Strange.
Yeah, just voice actors like Corey Burton. Yeah. But no live action.
I haven't heard that. So I don't know what he's supposed to sound like. All I know is that what the audience seems to get, and I got it kind of organically just by looking at all the images and looking at myself in the mirror once that we were done with the design. I said, well, it feels like he should sound like this. And then he eventually kind of got created sounding like that. And so I'm thrilled that the audience embraced him in that way, because they really liked him. They really wanted more of him. They get him. I think they hate him, but they like to hate him in a way. It's not just a one note kind of hating him, which is always what you're kind of trying to go for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that your Hugo Strange is perfect. I was talking to we were talking about this earlier, and I said I think that the feel for a show about Batman's world without Batman, it feels very Batman. The world feels very Batman. Every aspect of it. To me, I know there's guys out there that complain about everything. I mean, you can't please some of the guys, but I'm a 35-year comic book fan, and I love every second of Gotham. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job at creating that world, and I think you've nailed Hugo Strange.
That's actually that's super nice, and I really appreciate that. I think that Bruno and the guys that create the show are like you, and so I think they get it the same way that you do, and I think that's why it appeals to you, because they're serving up their idea of what the Batman universe can be in a television show without Batman even, and so there does seem to be a synchronicity to that.
Much so. Great casting all around.